Chad Connelly is the Director of Faith Engagement for the Republican National Committee. They had the Voters' Values Summit. Did anything significant come out of that this weekend, Chad?
I think it's just a highlight that people care about values. They care about our leaders having those values, and I think it sees the inspiration that people have right now. They're excited, they're animated about this election, and they want to be a part of it.
Does this really have significance? I mean, is it just a political show, or is there real meat behind it?
I think there's a lot of meat behind it, Brian. I think what you see is, despite maybe what was tried to be foisted on the people years ago, character does matter, and people want to know that their leaders have a character and integrity behind them, and they can be reliable and trustworthy.
Just 35 days from now, voters will go to the polls. Do you think politicians are going to avoid these moral debates until then, or you think they'll jump into the fray?
Well, you know, a lot of the moral debates may not be on the top of the mind of people, but folks want to know where their leaders stand. And I've been in 31 states all over the place. I think congressmen like that probably ought to get out of D.C. a little bit and see what people are thinking, because people are upset about what's going on, and they realize their involvement is imperative, it's necessary, and maybe at a level like we haven't seen in a long, long time.
When we've talked before, you've said that people of faith didn't turn out as strong for Republicans in the last election. Why is that, and do you think that'll change this year?
Well, I sure hope so. I mean, that's what my job's all about. And you don't know if it's just last election or if it's just been kind of maybe a neglect over a long period of time. And our chairman, Reince Priebus, and a lot of us kind of recognize that maybe we need an all-hands-on-deck approach. When you lose elections, you start getting reflective and you say, what have we got to do better? And so we wanted to go back to the base. We want to talk to people of faith. This is the natural home for people of faith. I don't have to hang the Republican Party around my neck. If people will go vote the biblical values that they know in their hearts and they're reading in the Word, then I believe will come out okay, because this is the party that's the natural home for people of faith.
But this is politics. Don't you run the risk of alienating non-believers or even marginal Christians?
You know, I think the left has been pretty good at trying to get us to say you shouldn't be involved in this. But in a biblical worldview, you know, God's everywhere, He's nowhere at all. And so I believe that people think everybody's got some kind of core belief system. And those people respect that I got my belief and you have your belief, and we all ought to be involved in the process.
So a recent Pew Poll suggests that more Americans want religion to be more involved in the political process. Why do you think that is?
I think they're just kind of looking for a way. You know, I lost my wife a few years ago and learned a lot of lessons, learned to trust in God and watch Him. But one of the big lessons I learned is my boys needed me. They needed my leadership. And I think people, when they see a lot of confusion, a lot of things that aren't fitting together, they're looking for leadership of their priest, their pastor, and other faith leaders. And I think that's why people are saying, yes, we ought to have spiritual values and religious values put back in the public arena. Maybe it's been out of there way too long and way too much.
There are people of all faiths voting. How do you reach out to these various denominations and even faiths of great diversity?
I mean, I'm talking to everybody who will talk right now, and I'm finding that there's a whole lot of low-hanging fruit, and it's every denomination, every stripe, every religious background, and I'm just trying to be out there. Like I said, I've been in a bunch of states, and I'm talking to leaders from every denomination I can to get them just to, hey, register all the people in the pews, make sure that you preach biblical values, and then talk to them about making sure you go and vote those values in the voting booth on November 4th.
You make a great case. The RNC's Chad Connelly, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brian.